I'm Sonia Parikh. I'm an adult psychiatrist. I'm going to talk to you today about adult ADHD. What is adult ADHD? Well, it's ADHD that presents in an adult. So what's ADHD? Well, it stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and it's a chronic neurodevelopmental brain condition that presents in children under the age of 10, usually, and it presents with the characteristic constellation of symptoms that you would think of: disorganization, difficulty following directions, restlessness, difficulty staying on task, difficulties with behavioral regulation, etc. 60% of children with ADHD will continue to have ADHD into adulthood. So that means that maybe 40% will grow out of ADHD. And so when I see adults who present to the clinic, who present with ADHD, it's, they most definitely had ADHD as children, whether or not they were diagnosed. And interestingly, even though it is a childhood diagnosis, oftentimes I see adults who come in for the first time complaining of impairment related to ADHD. And so how can that be? Well, there are many factors that hinder initial diagnosis of ADHD during childhood. One of them is stigma about mental illness. And stigma can be an inhibitory factor for parents to go seek out mental health care for their child who maybe has behavioral issues. Another issue that has come up is children with high intellectual function often compensate pretty well for ADHD problems, and so their ADHD may go unrecognized until adulthood, and so then they'll come to me for their first presentation of adult ADHD. A third reason why a child may go undiagnosed is that parents often provide a very structured environment for their children. They make sure that they don't lose their shoes, they turn their homework in, do their homework, don't lose their backpack, show up to class. And so oftentimes when these kids end up going to college, they may see their first signs of impairment related to ADHD because for the first time they're left to their own devices to kind of come up with their own structure, to keep track of their academics. And so oftentimes I see college students presenting for the first time with ADHD because they're doing so poorly academically, they can't keep track, they're not showing up to class, or they're procrastinating so badly that they're not doing well, or they're losing their keys in their wallet every other week. And so, so that's significantly impairing, so they come in for an evaluation. So what causes ADHD? So ADHD is a very biologic illness. It's actually one of the few illnesses in psychiatry that absolutely requires medication treatment. Psychotherapy is not equal. It's helpful, but it's not equal to medication treatment. And so first thing to know, ADHD is very heritable. If you're an adult with ADHD, there is about 50% chance that your child will have ADHD. And some twin studies show 80% heritability. So that means if you're a twin with ADHD, there's an 80% chance that your identical twin will have ADHD. ADHD is thought to be a dysfunction of neurotransmitter function. And so, our brain makes all of these chemicals, including dopamine and norepinephrine. You may have heard of those. And so those are underactive in ADHD, especially in the front part of our brain that's responsible for learning, memory, processing, emotional regulation, alertness, etc. So now, why talk about ADHD? Why is this important? Well, 4 to 5% of US adults are thought to have ADHD. And believe it or not, it's very, very impairing. Maybe even more so than for a child who has ADHD, because a child has parents to organize them, to kind of make sure that they show up to class and, keep their things together. But an adult often has to organize other people. They have to organize a child. They have to organize a household. They have to, make sure that they're on top of their work responsibilities. They have to drive on the road. And so oftentimes ADHD untreated is very, very impairing for an adult. And, it puts a strain on work life, it puts a strain on careers, it puts a strain on relationships. Actually, there's a higher rate of infidelity and divorce in people with ADHD. There's anecdotal stories of, parents with ADHD who forget their toddlers in the car because they're so distracted, and so it's dangerous. And drivers with untreated ADHD, it's almost like driving under the influence of alcohol. So they have higher rates of speeding tickets and higher rates of car accidents. So it definitely is a burden on the individual and the family and society. So it's very important.